The night draped the city in an impenetrable shroud as I decided to explore the abandoned factory. Moonlight struggled to pierce through the clouds, casting eerie shadows on the rusted fence and decaying buildings. A cold wind brushed through the deserted corridors as I ventured into the darkness, driven by curiosity and fear. The interior of the factory was dim and menacing. The scent of decaying wood and damp concrete hung in the air. The only sounds were the echo of my footsteps and the occasional drip of water. An uncanny sensation of being watched crawled over my skin, and I instinctively turned, half expecting to see someone. But there was no one, just the empty corridors stretching before me. I shook my head, trying to shake off the nervousness. It was probably just my imagination, a reaction to the eerie surroundings. I followed a corridor deeper into the factory when suddenly I heard a faint whisper. It sounded like voices carried from a distance, barely discernible yet undeniably present. My heart began to race, and a shiver ran down my spine. Could there really be someone here? "Hello?" I called out uncertainly into the darkness. The only response was another whisper, this time louder and clearer. It was as if it was right in front of me, yet I couldn't see anyone. The room seemed filled with invisible presences, voices from another realm. My courage grew as I cautiously moved toward the source of the whispers. They seemed to come from an old break room, its door slightly ajar. As I approached, the whispers grew louder and I could make out individual words and phrases, disjointed like fragments of a conversation. Carefully, I pushed the door open further and stepped into the room. The whispers swelled into an eerie murmur that enveloped me. The air felt heavy as if it were saturated with the words themselves. I gazed at the faded wallpaper and tattered furniture, but there was no one to be seen. Then I noticed something, a faint glow in the corner of the room. I approached, realizing that it emanated from an old radio. It was in a state of disrepair, but the display faintly flickered in sync with the whispers. I took a step back as the whispers suddenly crescendoed. The words grew louder. The voices seemed desperate. It was as if they were pleading for help, as if they were trapped and trying to make themselves heard. A frigid breeze swept over me as I sensed a shadow from the corner of my eye. I turned and froze in horror. Before me stood spectral figures, people semi-transparent, their faces etched with anguish. Their mouths moved in sync with the whispers, yet no words reached my ears. Backing away, my throat dry with fear, I felt a weightless touch on my skin. I turned to face the mirror on the wall, where my own reflection seemed distorted. The whispers intensified, swirling around me, an almost tangible presence. I stared at the mirror, half expecting to see something else reflected in its depths. But the room was empty, and I was alone with the haunting murmur. With every step, the whispers faded until they finally fell silent. But the horror remained, lingering in my thoughts and dreams. I couldn't forget what I had experienced, the ghostly voices speaking from another world. Since that night, I avoid the abandoned factory and carry the memory of those unsettling whispers within me. The spirits had touched me in a way I will never forget. They were a chilling testament that the beyond is closer than we think, and sometimes the boundary between our world and the world of spirits blurs.